Picture this: a teardrop-shaped carbon fiber capsule doing 250 miles per hour down a NASA shuttle runway in Florida. 3 seats, central driving position, 1,050 horsepower, and exactly 106 examples built. If that sounds familiar, it should, because 22 years after building the McLaren F1, McLaren decided to do something absolutely insane. They built a successor that's somehow faster, more exclusive, and costs $2.2 million before you even think about options. This is the McLaren Speedtail, and it's not just a hypercar. It's an engineering middle finger to physics, wrapped in liquid metal, powered by hybrid brutality, and pre-sold to billionaires before McLaren even turned on the assembly line. Buckle up, because this is the story of how McLaren took the world's greatest supercar, added electric motors and aerodynamic witchcraft, then broke 250 miles per hour while you sit in the middle like a fighter pilot. Let's set the stage. October 26th, 2018. McLaren drops a press release that makes the automotive world collectively lose its mind. We're building a spiritual successor to the F1. 106 units, $2.2 million. Already sold out. Oh, and it'll do 250. The internet explodes. Journalists scramble. Ferrari executives probably threw their espresso across the room, because McLaren just announced they were building the car that shouldn't exist. Here's the context. The McLaren F1 isn't just a car, it's the car. The automotive Mount Everest, 243 miles per hour in 1998, with a naturally aspirated V12 and no electronic nannies. For 2 decades, nothing touched it. Nothing came close. The F1 was untouchable, unrepeatable, impossible to follow. And McLaren knew it. They tried with the P1. Brilliant, but it was a track weapon, not a grand tourer. Different mission, different soul. Then someone at McLaren apparently asked the question that changes everything. What if we built the F1's successor? Not spiritually, literally. 3 seats? Check. Central driving position? Check. 106 units? Check. Dihedral doors? Check. Exceed the F1's top speed? Oh, absolutely check. Plot twist. They actually pulled it off. Hell froze over, pigs flew, and McLaren built a car that makes the F1 look slow. Let me break down what McLaren created, because the Speedtail isn't just fast. It's a rolling physics experiment that happens to have license plates. Start with the name Speedtail, not Ultimate, not GTR, not some alphanumeric corporate garbage. They literally called it what it is, a car designed to go fast with a tail optimized for speed. Refreshing honesty from a company that usually names cars like Formula 1 telemetry codes. The shape, and this is where things get weird, is a perfect teardrop. Not inspired by a teardrop, not influenced by aerodynamics. A literal teardrop optimized by computational fluid dynamics and wind tunnel testing. 202 inches long. That's over 16.5 feet of carbon fiber streamlining. For context, a Chevrolet Suburban is around 210 inches. The Speedtail is nearly as long as a full-size SUV. But it's a 3-seat hypercar. McLaren looked at physics and said, "We're not fighting drag. We're negotiating with it, politely." And that teardrop shape isn't just pretty. It's the most aerodynamically efficient McLaren ever built. Drag coefficient so low that air molecules apparently file complaints about being parted so smoothly. How efficient? McLaren won't even publish the exact number, right? Because it's a trade secret. When a manufacturer won't brag about aero, you know it's absurdly good. Now let's talk about those front wheels, because this is where McLaren's engineers apparently went full supervillain. The Speedtail has static carbon fiber covers over the front wheels, not retractable, not removable for normal driving. Static, as in permanently attached, non-moving, aerodynamic wheel covers. You know what else has covered front wheels? Velomobiles, recumbent bicycles, land speed record cars. Things that prioritize aerodynamics over literally everything else, including common sense. And here's the kicker. Those wheel covers make the Speedtail completely illegal for street use in the United States under FMVSS regulations. No side-mounted airbags? Sure, that's a problem. But covered wheels? Apparently that's where the NHTSA draws the line. You can have 1,000 horsepower, but God forbid you streamline your front wheels. So American buyers paid $2.2 million for a car they can legally drive 2,500 miles per year under the show or display exemption. That's $88,000 per 1,000 miles. Garage art that costs more than most people's houses, and you can barely drive it. But wait, it gets better. The Speedtail doesn't have side mirrors at all. Why would we need mirrors? McLaren engineers apparently asked. When we can mount retractable HD cameras that deploy from the body. Cameras, not mirrors. Cameras with feeds to interior displays. Because apparently traditional glass reflection technology wasn't sci-fi enough for McLaren. And yes, this also makes it illegal in most countries. McLaren built a $2 million car that's technically not street legal almost anywhere without special exemptions. The doors, dihedral, just like the F1. They swing up and forward in that distinctive McLaren gesture that says, "Yes, I'm rich. Yes, this is impractical. No, I don't care about your parking lot." But unlike the F1's simple mechanical hinges, the Speedtail's doors are powered, hydraulically actuated. They open themselves like a spaceship. Because manually opening doors is apparently too much effort when you've spent $2.2 million. Let that marinate for a second. Covered wheels, camera mirrors, powered doors, teardrop shape, 3 seats, central driving position. This isn't a car. It's a statement. An engineering manifesto wrapped in carbon fiber and dipped in liquid aerodynamics. Now let's pop the hood, metaphorically, because the Speedtail's engine is behind you. And talk about the powertrain. Because this is where McLaren went full mad scientist. The F1 had a naturally aspirated BMW V12. 6.1 liters of screaming German precision. No turbos, no superchargers, no hybrid systems. Just throttle response so sharp it could cut glass. The Speedtail, McLaren said, "That's cute. Hold my Earl Grey. We're going hybrid. 4.0-liter twin-turbocharged V8 making 746 horsepower. Already absurd." But McLaren looked at that number and said, "Not enough. Add an electric motor. E-motor. 312 PS. That's about 307 horsepower for us Americans still stuck on imperial units. Combined output, 1,050 horsepower. 1,050. The F1 made 627. The Speedtail makes 423 more horsepower than the legend it's succeeding. And if you're enjoying hypercar insanity delivered with maximum sarcasm and minimum BS, smash that subscribe button. We've got an entire Ultimate Series playlist documenting McLaren's greatest hits and most expensive mistakes. 848 pound-feet of torque, all sent to the rear wheels through a 7-speed Graziano dual-clutch transmission. No all-wheel drive, no torque vectoring to the front. Pure, unfiltered 1,000-horsepower rear-wheel drive insanity. Because apparently McLaren thinks stability control and hybrid systems are enough to keep 1,050 horses from killing you. 0 to 60. 2.9 seconds. 2.9. For context, that's quicker than a Bugatti Veyron, faster than a Porsche 918 Spider, in the same ballpark as a Tesla Model S Plaid, except the Speedtail does it with style, sound, and a central driving position. 0 to 186 miles per hour, 12.8 seconds, 12.8. The McLaren P1, the previous Ultimate Series hypercar, did it in 16.5 seconds. The Speedtail is 3.7 seconds faster to 186. Let that sink in. A luxury Grand Tourer designed for comfortable high-speed cruising is almost 4 seconds faster to highway illegal speeds than McLaren's track-focused hybrid hypercar. But here's where the Speedtail absolutely destroys everything. Top speed. 250 miles per hour. 250. Not claimed, not theoretical, not estimated in simulation. Verified. Multiple times. At Kennedy Space Center in Florida on the same runway where space shuttles used to land, 7 miles per hour faster than the mighty McLaren F1. The car that held the production car speed record for over a decade, beaten by its own successor. And McLaren didn't just hit 250 once and call it good. They verified it over 30 times. 30! Because apparently hitting 250 miles per hour once isn't impressive enough. You need to do it repeatedly to prove it's not a fluke. Oh, you hit 250? Cute. Do it 29 more times or we're not impressed. McLaren testing department, probably. 250 miles per hour, in a luxury Grand Tourer, with 3 seats, and hybrid electric assist. This is what happens when McLaren engineers get unlimited budget and are told, build the F1 successor, no compromises, make it faster. Now let's talk about how the Speedtail hits 250, because it's not just power, it's a party trick called velocity mode. At normal speeds, well, normal being a relative term for a 1,000 horsepower hypercar, the Speedtail sits at regular ride height, you know, like a civilized automobile. But press the velocity mode button, yes, there's a button, and the car transforms. Active suspension drops the entire car 35 millimeters closer to the ground. Rear ailerons, 2 flexible carbon fiber pieces, rotate and actuate hydraulically to optimize airflow, not slightly adjust. Rotate, like airplane control surfaces. The entire car hunkers down, smooths out its aero profile, and basically says, I was being polite, now watch what I can really do. It's like a hypercar superhero transformation sequence. But it's real, it's engineered, and it enables 250 miles per hour. And those ailerons aren't just for show, they're structural. McLaren developed a special manufacturing process to create flexible carbon fiber that's strong enough to handle aerodynamic loads at 250. Most carbon fiber is rigid, inflexible. You know, like carbon fiber should be. But McLaren said, what if we made it bendy, for science? And it worked. Flexible carbon fiber that moves, flexes, and doesn't explode at 250 miles per hour. Patent pending, obviously. Now let's discuss the materials. Because McLaren didn't just use carbon fiber. They used titanium deposition carbon fiber. That's carbon fiber with titanium woven into the weave at a microscopic level. It's lighter than steel, stronger than aluminum, and costs approximately your entire retirement savings per square foot. McLaren used it for interior trim pieces and structural elements. Because regular carbon fiber apparently isn't exotic enough when you're charging $2 million. The windshield, electrochromic glass. It tints itself electronically based on sunlight levels. No sun visors. No flipping down a piece of cardboard like a peasant. The glass changes opacity on command. Let there be less light. Speedtail owners probably, while cruising at 200 miles per hour in air-conditioned comfort. Weight? 3,521 pounds. That's nearly 1,000 pounds lighter than a Bugatti Chiron. For a car that's over 16 feet long, carries a hybrid powertrain, has 3 seats, luxury interior, and enough tech to run a small space program, that's remarkably light. McLaren built a 17-foot hybrid Grand Tourer that weighs less than most track-focused supercars. Inside, 3 seats arranged like the F1, driver in the center, passengers slightly back into the sides. You sit like a fighter pilot, or a Bond villain, depending on your perspective. Alcantara everywhere. Carbon fiber trim, bespoke leather, titanium switchgear, and those camera mirror displays flanking your peripheral vision. It's minimalist luxury. Not shouty, not overwrought, just, I cost $2 million and I don't need to prove it. 1,050 horsepower, 250 miles per hour, 3,500 pounds, 3 seats, central driving position, pre-sold before production even started. The Speedtail isn't just a successor to the F1. It's an evolution, a refinement, a statement that analog brutality can coexist with hybrid efficiency and dominate. Now let's talk business, because here's where the Speedtail story gets even better. 106 units, same as the F1. Not 105, not 107, exactly 106. McLaren matched the F1's production run digit for digit, and all 106 sold out before McLaren even started building them. $2.2 million times 106. That's $233 million in pre-sold hypercars. Launch price? £1.75 million. That's roughly 2.2 million US dollars at the time. Before options, before personalization, before you inevitably spec it with everything. By the time owners finished ticking option boxes, most Speedtails crossed 2.5 million easily. And the market? Values have stabilized around original MSRP to slightly over, trading in the 2 to 2.5 million range depending on spec and market conditions. McLaren built a hypercar that holds its value while most depreciate the moment they leave the showroom. Who bought them? Roughly 35% went to American buyers, even though it's basically illegal here without special exemptions. I'll pay $2.2 million for a car I can drive 2,500 miles per year. Worth it. Americans with more money than sense, and honestly, they're right. The rest went to the UK, Middle East, Europe, and Asia. Billionaires buying garage art that does 250. Testing, because you can't just claim 250, you have to prove it. McLaren took the Speedtail to Kennedy Space Center's Johnny Bomer Proving Grounds, 3.5 miles of former Space Shuttle landing runway in Florida. The same concrete that caught 200-ton spacecraft coming back from orbit, now being used to test a British hypercar's top speed. And they didn't just do one run. They did dozens, multiple cars, multiple drivers. 30-plus verified runs at 250 miles per hour. Additional testing in Germany, Spain, and Italy. High-speed circuits, Autobahn runs, mountain passes. McLaren validated every claim, every number, every performance metric. Because when you're building the F1's successor, you don't get to fudge the numbers. You don't get to estimate, you prove it. So what is the Speedtail? It's McLaren asking. What if we took everything we learned in 20-plus years of building Ultimate Series cars and applied it to the F1 formula? The F1 was analog emotion, raw connection, mechanical perfection, 627 naturally aspirated horsepower and the sound of the gods. The Speedtail is scientific precision, computational optimization, hybrid efficiency meeting brute force, 1,050 horsepower delivered with surgical precision. It's not better than the F1, it's different. Faster? Yes. More powerful? Absolutely. More advanced? Without question. But the F1 had soul measured in revs and throttle response. The Speedtail has efficiency measured in drag coefficients and electric assist. The F1 was emotion. The Speedtail is intellect. Both are brilliant. Both are legendary. Both make Ferrari nervous. And that's the genius. McLaren didn't try to replace the F1. They built its spiritual successor while respecting what made the original untouchable. 250 miles per hour, 106 units, all pre-sold, mission accomplished. So next time someone tells you they don't make them like they used to, remind them McLaren took the greatest supercar ever built, added electric motors and liquid aerodynamics, hit 250 miles per hour, sold out before production started, and made it illegal in America just to flex on physics. This is Supercar Chronicles, documenting the cars that make accountants weep and engineers celebrate. Hit that subscribe button for more hypercar insanity. Coming next, we're covering another British legend that rewrote the rulebook. You won't want to miss it.